today I have the great pleasure of having Andrew with me. Andrew is from Virginia in the USA. He has a schizoaffective diagnosis and he's 34. So welcome, Andrew. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I'm doing pretty well. I got a slight hangover actually, but I'm doing fine. So Andrew, what I want to ask you, this question is always the same. If you would like to give us a history of your mental health journey, you can start from when you want. It's a good to hear how the mental health diagnosis came about. What were the triggers and what happened? I think it gives our listeners a real insight.
So I had a pretty normal development. I have great parents who continue to support me. Even when I was a kid, I had good parents growing up. They might have been a little bit on the neglectful side, but uh, I mean, overall, I'm super blessed to have them in my life.
Yeah.
Um, I I uh, I was born with an umbilical cord around my neck, and I was put in an incubator for a time, and I think that had some kind of influence on my development. I
Okay.
remember being very sad a lot as a kid and never crying. Um, and as I grew older, I had a pretty normal development. I had friends and things like that, but I think I got infected with toxoplasmosis. Could have been a fever, but I got
So,
a very
so that's
high
a cat
fever
cat disease,
when I
isn't it?
was 11. Yes. Yeah. And if you have schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, you might want to look into, or even bipolar, you might want to look into toxoplasmosis and the research regarding that, because I think it's very it's a factor that might influence your
Yeah.
development.
Yeah, I've heard about it
So
actually. Yeah.
yeah, um, so I was about 11 when I got this infection, and my cat started having problems with her bowels, and she would just poop all over the place. And then I got sick. And after this, I kind of changed. After I had this sickness, I went back from my default when I was really young to being sad a lot. Um, I kind of would entertain myself with sadness. So yeah, I just think of dark themes. And when I was 13, I had this humiliating thing happen where, like, my porn on the computer, I had a sister who took the porn and like shared it with people at school, and I found that like super
Ooh,
embarrassing.
that's
Yeah,
horrible.
yeah. It was pretty bad, but I don't know. I think I had unusual tastes probably as a result of this infection, which made it more embarrassing.
Mm.
Um, and I just kind of retreated in my head, and I was very sad for a long time. Never spoke of it. Never shared any of my problems with anyone. And when I was 22, came to be too much. I was initially diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, which I think is more along the lines of what's going on with me. Uh, but yeah, so I was in a really bad way. I remember sharing with my psychiatrist like all my problems that I had never unloaded for like 10 years, 12 years. And it was weird because he said that I had disorganized thinking, like I wasn't speaking in coherent sentences. But the way I remember it, like I was speaking coherently. It was just like my reading was that it was so sad, like the nature, that he had some defense mechanism where he couldn't comprehend it. And he said I was talking word salads when I was not. So yeah, I mean, I don't like to get into the nitty gritty details of like the facets of the sadness or whatever. A lot of I think it's really what I discovered, when I was 22 or 23. It was in 2011. I stopped taking my medications for like 6 months, and I I became like I was eating I was eating pasta. So I was eating ravioli every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I just started my imagination went just over in overdrive. And I wrote this story called Baby Bar in like 3 days. It's available on Amazon if you want to pick it up. But it's Baby Bar by Andrew L. Fraser. I wrote that in 3 days, and it's a really interesting story. Like it's about the virtue of idiocy and war. It's actually very prescient to today, because it's like a war between the Soviet Union and the Allied powers. But it's a comical story. It's much like Catch 22. But after that, I got hospitalized, and I was put on Risperdal. But I didn't sleep. I broke the world record for sleep deprivation. It was something like 14 days by my estimation. I can't verify that. Nobody was checking up on it. I'm not in the Guinness book, but yeah, I suffered for that. It took me about a month and a half to recover, and when I got out of the hospital, I really didn't have the patience to like tie my shoes. So I mean, I had really negative impact. And I wasn't getting anything done. I was failing in school for many years. I got a job as a cart pusher at Walmart, and I remember just how blessed I was to have that job, and so thankful for it. And In 2015, I fell in love with this woman. Like the second I saw her, I just fell in love with her. I had a girlfriend at the time, and I she left the work, and I kid you not, like I was so disappointed that I hadn't told her how I felt that I started throwing up my medications every day, and I didn't sleep for about 6 days that time, and I was still showing up to work, and I was blacking out on the sales floor, like singing show tunes and stuff, and so I eventually quit my job because I couldn't handle it anymore, and I mean my managers and stuff were very understanding, and I went back to school. I actually, during this in 2015, I was diagnosed with bipolar.
Hmm.
So it kind of evolved. And that's when I really took seriously cutting out gluten from my diet. And I went to school and I took chemistry too. Um, and I did really well in the course. I got an A. I got a 98 on the final exam. And this, I think, was attributed to cutting out gluten and dairy. I was eating a, a low carb diet, and I
Hmm.
was doing really well on it. And then um, I took programming course a little while later. I think next semester or the semester after that, and I did really well again. And then I took one more semester, and I had stopped taking my medications once again, and I I I dropped out. I just stopped going to class. I was working on the game full time. I had picked up the game because I felt like everything, like I had failed at everything, and so I just wanted to fail at one thing and not do what my parents wanted me to do. Just work on this one thing for the rest of my life. And I thought I would fail at it, at first. And yeah, it's come a long way. In 5 years, I remember after about a year and a half of coding, I came up with this engine called the Obcentric,
Hmm.
which was this way of increasing the map size from 200,000 units to like three decillion, like astronomical numbers. And then yeah, I worked on that for about 3 years. And then I recently last year started a new project, a new game engine called the Double Cast engine, which is far more powerful and it's more efficient. It's in every way better.
So game engine is it's like a tool to build a game on top of that, isn't it? In
Yeah,
terms of
this one,
3D graphic effects and
yeah,
that sort of thing.
it's the game engine's actually the term is kind of confusing because it's used recursively. It can mean like a game editor. Now they use the term editor for like making this in Unity, but the game engine is the core logic. Every game has its own game engine.
Yeah.
Um, if you can understand it that way, and the game engine I developed, the double cast engine, is really a lot like No Man's Sky technology.
Hmm.
So it's called the double cast engine because it's cast to a double, and so
So
you
how,
have
how how did
astronomical
how
numbers.
did you go about designing a game engine? What first of all, what language were you working with?
I worked primarily in C sharp. I did a little bit of C plus plus as well when I was making projects in Unreal. But yeah, it's primarily C sharp. But really, this game engine can be done in any game engine you can imagine. Um, it's got three components to it: the Oracle physics engine, the Doublecast engine, and the Origin V2 logic. So there's
So
a lot of
basically, you're simulating a real world on the computer, which is why you need a physics engine, I would understand. And then the other engines, I guess, would be things like I/O and I don't know, design of the graphics or something.
yeah. Well, the physics engine is really for Newtonian interactions, and a
Mm,
lot of these 3D space sims they don't have that. They don't have 3D interactions
mm,
in the game. So they have modified physics or something like that.
mm,
So really, in the game demo, it shows me shooting a soccer ball like with lasers.
mm,
The idea of this recent project was to make like rocket league in outer space with
mm.
spaceships. And yeah, it involved that. Well, at first it's pretty easy because the physics engine is inbuilt. If you're not making like a massive world, one of these like double cast engines, like No Man's Sky kind of things, it's very easy. But once you have like this other way of doing it, which is like observer centric model, you have to adjust the physics for that, and it's very difficult and complicated.
Is it
It's
quite mathematical?
yeah, yes, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, because
especially the double cast engine.
in my experience of computer programming in terms of industry, it's more logic, it's less mathematical. But I would understand that games programming is probably more mathematical in terms of algorithms um, and that sort of thing. Is I mean, what do you say about that?
Yeah, it's an interplay of both logic and mathematics.
Mm,
So really, I just I just would stick on a problem and think of like, is there some way to do it? And I'll come up with crazy ideas, right? Like things that would I don't think would ever work. And then
mm,
I like say, well, what if it could work? Like,
mhm,
how would I go about doing it? And then I come up with like crazy ideas of how it would work. Like the trade lanes in particular are very mathematical.
yeah,
So basically, like if you have like a vector 3 in Unity, like you can do a normalized magnitude thing, but in a double, it's a different data type, and you have to make those methods yourself. And
yeah,
the way that they interact from float to double, like when to cast, is really important to determine like the accuracy of the trade lanes.
yeah,
So like if you want trade lanes that can go on forever, like
mm,
20 million units or something like that. Like you really have to.
So is this to do with being like, say, 64-bit and 32-bit?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So 64 bits are much bigger numbers,
Mm,
and that allows you to make a map size that's much greater than you normally would otherwise. And
So
another
Andrew,
thing about
so
yeah,
I think, like, I also have hobbies. Like this podcast is one of my hobbies,
hmm
and it helps me cope with the condition.
yeah,
So I would imagine your game does. Is that? Do you find that's a good coping mechanism? Something to
it's
focus on.
yeah,
Um,
it's like the best thing that's ever happened to me.
yeah,
Like really, in terms of just having something to do.
yeah,
But I mean, I would say that it wouldn't have been possible had I not cut out gluten and dairy from my diet
yeah.
for as long as I had. That really was like um, jet fuel to my brain. Like I remember uh, when I cut out gluten and dairy for a year and a half, I remember thinking to myself, like, when's the last time I was depressed? Like, when was the last time I had a suicidal thought or anything like that? Which was prior to that, like, very kind of normal circumstance for me. It would be like an everyday thing. And yeah, so it had a profound impact. It was I say it's more important than the medications
Yeah.
is to go off gluten and dairy for me.
Well,
Um,
I think nutrition is important. Um, so I've had experience with plant-based eating, and that, I think, so that is no dairy and no meat. But
mhm.
perhaps it is determined to your body type.
Yeah.
Um, I think you find what works for you. Um, I would say that because some people say, "Oh, well, just eat meat," and I enjoy the taste of meat, and I sometimes eat it, but I generally feel that plant based works for my body type,
hmm
my digestive system,
Yeah.
and it does make a difference. Um, Even though I do struggle with it because there is quite a domination of meat eating culture where I live, um, and it is difficult to just to do your own thing at times. But
hmm
yeah, nutrition definitely plays a big part. In one way, it keeps your body healthy, and also it can affect the clarity of your mind as well.
Yeah.
Um, so for
Do you
sure.
eat Beyond Burgers?
I do eat Beyond Burgers. Actually, I eat
Love
Beyond
them.
Mince. I make bolognese with Beyond Mince, which is I find it's the tastiest plant based mince I've tried.
That's great. Yeah, they're delicious.
They are, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I'm surprised how close to an actual burger it actually is.
yeah. I think like I can cook a really good vegan burger in my kitchen.
hmm
And but the problem is most of the takeaways that are vegan sell vegan burgers and they're pretty gross. So I don't tend to buy them because I know that I can cook a pretty good vegan burger at home. Um,
Yeah.
so and obviously it's gonna be cheaper and fresher and all that business. But yeah, I tend to cook them at home. I'll have like a burger once a week or something. Um,
hmm
but I won't buy a burger from a takeaway because they're never as good. They're always a bit soggy and just don't taste as good, and they look a bit gross, to be honest.
Yeah. And they're gluten free, so
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I don't practice gluten free, to be
hmm
honest with you. I do eat wheat products. Um, I think the main thing for me is just to reduce the dairy and meat. Um,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I do.
Cool.
So how are
Yeah,
you
yeah.
feeling now, Andrew? So you've got the game.
Well,
How
I
things
mean,
now?
I ate a pizza a few days ago. I just don't know what compelled me to do it, self sabotage or something like that. And about 3 days ago, I ate a whole Domino's pizza, and I within 30, 40 minutes, I just started acting up.
Yeah.
I was really kind of hectic. And now I'm kind of recovering from that.
Mm,
It's been like 2 or 3 days since I've had the pizza, and so like I'm making my bed and cleaning up on that. But as far as programming goes, I think I still need a little bit longer. I'm currently working on procedural networks for the trade lanes,
yeah.
so that they populate themselves on build or on play.
Dynamically
And
updated.
yeah, they update at the start method, and so I want to output a text file
Hmm.
that has the positions, so it's the same for every game. But I
Okay.
want the first one to be randomized, so it populates it itself, and then I save the information and
Yeah,
have a
I
lookup
think
table or something like that.
it sounds like a lot of problem solving, which is good.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I guess I would imagine the way my mind works is like I think of what I want to do, and then slowly it will solve itself in the background. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Like I'll go to sleep thinking about a problem and come up with a solution the next morning
yeah,
or
yeah,
something like that. Just the fact that you're thinking about it all the
mm,
time means you come up with some kind of solution.
yeah,
And yeah, a lot of the times I figure out things when I'm going for a walk. So I'll just be not paying attention to nature or anything. I know this is
mm,
probably not very Buddhist or anything like that, but I fixate on the problem and then I go Eureka. That's how you solve it, and I come back. And so, really, it's a lot of time where I'm just thinking about how to solve problems, like
mm.
for a long period of time.
Did you find that your psychosis um, was was an element of problem solving in that as well? Um,
Uh,
Dealing with the psychosis and you thinking, okay, I need to do this or I need to do that.
Uh, yeah, I mean, certainly, at least for me, cutting out the gluten was a big part of that puzzle.
Mm,
So I just noticed that I was eating pasta, uh, ravioli, pasta, macaroni and cheese every time I had one of these problems. One time it was a cheesesteak that I ate. So I mean, I learned this lesson, then I learned it over and over again. Because it really does take a moment where I'm just like, okay, I ate this food and I'm having a reaction. So now, I've got to commit to cutting this out, for the rest of my life or for a period of time. Um, yeah, and that was probably the biggest part of the puzzle for me. Also, taking medications are important. Um,
yeah, I think when you get older, you do realize, okay, I actually will take the medication because
yeah.
it does help. And at the end of the day, I think like when I was younger, I used to skip my meds. You know, I would
Hmm.
store them up in a little bag, and I'd have tons and tons of meds, and I would be having psychotic breakdowns. But you know, obviously now I'm older. I think yeah, that's why you were having psychotic breakdowns because you weren't
Yeah.
taking your bloody meds.
Yeah, yeah. The meds definitely do help.
Mm,
As much as it pains me to admit it,
mm,
because I don't, I mean, I just feel like, you know, it's kind of lame when I take my meds. I don't ever look forward to taking my meds. I'm just
mm.
like, I gotta get this deed done. Um, it's not something I ever look forward to. And,
Yeah.
I do have it as a goal of mine, a persistent goal to be stable off meds. I think that would mean more to me than all the money in the world. Um,
Yeah. I
you
think
know,
I also would like I have a diminishing dream that one day I will be able to exist without meds, but that
yeah.
today it's not today and it's not next year, but maybe one day. Um,
Mhm.
so you know, it's kind of like a dream to because I think that what regular people don't understand that the medications do affect us in very severe ways
Yeah.
physically, and it is a blessing to be medication free. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, Andrew, I think we're almost going to wrap this up. I just want to ask if there's anything else you want to talk about which we haven't talked about already.
I think that covers it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for this podcast. I really like how you're giving a voice to people who really normally are overlooked. So I applaud you for this
Thank you.
this podcast.
Thank you. Andrew, I want to ask you, give me a genre of music that you like, because I'm going to add it on the start and the end of this episode.
I really like Alt J. So I don't know what kind of what
Is it
theme that
electronic or
is. Like I guess it's kind of like electronic alt rock or something like
okay,
that.
cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, you're always welcome to come back for another episode. You've got my email, and we can always we can talk more. I am trying to get people to come back, because I think people wish to hear, how things are going, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
So you're very welcome, and it's an absolute pleasure to talk with you. And it was fun talking about computer science, which is one of my passions as well.
Yeah. I hope I'm not boring your
No, no,
listeners.
no, no. Yeah, I just find it interesting. So, um, I think it makes a different type of episode. Okay, that's great. So thank you so much, Andrew. We'll close it up here.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.